Wartime photographs capture the worst periods in human history. Above all, they need contemplation on the essence of humanity. If humanity's highest state is peace, then war is its lowest state. But conflicts have arisen between nations from the dawn of civilization thousands of years ago. In actuality, the unparalleled slaughter of 2 world wars gave rise to modern Western culture in many ways. World War II was the most catastrophic military battle in recorded history, with an estimated 60 million people dying in all, or around 3% of the world's population in 1940. On June 6, 1944, the Allied invasion of northern France marked a turning point in the course of World War II in Europe. D-Day, the standard military phrase for any major attack day, was the opening day of the conflict, with 156,000 Allied troops facing Nazi forces on the beaches of Normandy. The Allied invasion is seen in full color in the following photos. Wartime black and white photos can portray strong tones and textures, but they can also dehumanize the spectator by removing them from the action. On the other hand, viewers can relate to the situations, characters, and tales in color photos of conflict because of their emotive and temporal force. Operation Overlord, the code name for the invasion of Normandy, had the strategic goal of giving the Allies a foothold on the continent before Nazi Germany took control of it. Under pressure from the Soviet Union, which was dealing with its own invasion by German forces, plans for the invasion were developed. Actually, the goal of the Allies in creating a new front in the West was to split up and exhaust Hitler's military power. The strategy relied heavily on stealth and secrecy, and the Allies began a disinformation effort known as Operation Fortitude to mislead the Germans regarding its specifics. The Germans were aware that the Allies were preparing an invasion, but they believed, mistakenly, that the invasion would take place at Pas de Calais. The closest point to Britain across the English Channel troops from the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, and Free France made up the first invading ground force. The 5 beaches in Normandy that the Allies chose for their landing spots were designated Omaha, Utah, Juno, Gold, and Sword. Amphibious landing craft from bases on the southern English coast were to attack the beaches. As a result, the invasion was originally set for May 1, 1944. But due to a lack of landing craft, the Allies were obliged to reschedule for June 4th. The procedure was further delayed when bad weather arrived. At last, on June 6th, the Allies began their historic assault of Europe's continent. Glider landings, parachute drops, and midnight aircraft and naval bombardments spearheaded the assault. Afterwards, Allied ground forces touched down on the beaches at around 6:30 a.m. The Germans retaliated with fury, making use of advantageous terrain and defensive positions to facilitate their movements. Even though they dealt the Allies enormous casualties, they were able to triumph. And by June 9th, they had used parts that were towed from England to convert the 50-mile beachhead into 2 artificial ports. In 10 days, more than 600,000 troops, 90,000 vehicles, and 218,000 tons of supplies arrived to the harbors at Arromanches and Omaha. After that, a storm wrecked Omaha Harbor, and the port of Cherbourg was taken over, rendering Arromanches Harbor useless. The photos in this collection were presumably taken in the days and weeks that followed D-Day using film. The Allies' immediate goals at that point were to take control of the towns of Saint-Lô, Caen, and Bayeux, as well as to create a front that was between 6 and 10 miles inland from their landing point. They expected to be successful in a day or so, but in actuality, they advanced slowly from the beachhead, and there was no certainty of victory. For instance, during the 6-week assault to seize Caen, Allied forces from Britain and Canada faced up against 7 panzer divisions. The American forces had a little better experience, facing up against 2 panzer divisions. This image purports to show a tank battle between Allied and Axis forces newsreel film from the United Newsreel Corporation, a government-funded non-profit created by Paramount Pictures, RKO Radio Pictures, 20th Century Fox, Universal Studios, and the Hearst Corporation, is typically used to depict Normandy and other World War II conflicts. The Office of War Information's WWII Overseas Motion Picture Division was in charge of the organization. In a 2015 piece for Prologue magazine, Philip W. Stewart stated, "During times of war, the manipulation of thought and emotion is considered essential to generate a high level of morale, commitment, unity, and focus within soldiers, their families, and the home front in general." President Roosevelt created the Office of War Information, OI, the official branch of government propaganda, in order to facilitate this. The propaganda from newsreels was presumably translated into 15 other languages than English, including German. This implies that it was disseminated to allies, adversaries, and neutral nations, and was seen and consumed both internationally and locally. Its goal was to advance Allied narratives while obstructing hostile propaganda. United newsreel film was dropped over enemy lines in the case of the Axis countries. The American government altered and restricted the video content. 2 civilian camera teams might be sent to each of the 5 newsreel firms to cover the major fronts. They created video reels for the War Department's review in collaboration with combat cameramen from the armed forces. After that, off-message film was removed before the reels were released to the general audience. Newsreels cannot be regarded as objective historical sources as they were created under intense government monitoring. Despite this, they are filled with a wealth of striking visual recordings, including private moments that provide humanity to otherwise horrific circumstances. They do, in fact, evoke sympathy for the young men who gave their lives in order to save others. All of northern France had been freed by the Allies at the end of Operation Overlord on August 30th, 1944, the day the Germans crossed the Seine. The combatants had taken almost 425,000 casualties between them. 209,000 of them were on the side of the Allies. They comprised 125,847 ground forces from the United States and 83,045 men from the 21st Army Group, which included troops from Britain, Canada, and Poland. The war was about to come to an end with Normandy's victory. The operation eased Soviet soldiers on the Eastern Front and contributed to the decline of Nazi dominance in France. Germany was completely vanquished by the spring of 1945, when it was captured by the Red Army in the east and the Allied troops in the west. The troops who were videotaped at Normandy endured tragedies that are difficult for those of us born in later generations to fathom. They lived with death and the fear of death. In the end, these pictures serve as a reminder of our immense ability for harm, the pointlessness of violence, and the frailty of life and brotherhood striving for survival amid the chaos of war.